There was
the War of 1812 and stuff.
Yeah. So late 1800s, so 1860 was kind of the height of the British Empire. It was kind of as big as it could possibly be. It was said that the sun would never set on the British Empire. So it's still actually true today that the sun never sets on the British Empire. There's enough colonies all over the place that it won't set at the moment. The British Empire was huge, so that obviously meant that they had to have lots of ships to move everything around. They had a few companies that moved all the goods and cargo around. The best one of the time was called the RMS Company, the Royal Mail Steam Packet Company. It's actually the forerunner to the Royal Mail, which read in the news, privatised, all that kind of stuff. So this company moved goods and cargo around the British Empire. And they had a fleet of ships. The problem was the fleet of ships was getting quite old. They weren't really as good as they wanted to be. But because it was the Royal Mail, the Queen had invested a lot of money into it. The Queen at the time was Queen Victoria, okay, and she said, okay, if I give you some more money, get some better ships, so you're now going to be the best mail service that we've got. So she invests some money and goes to a couple of shipbuilding companies. One on the banks of the river up in Glasgow, the other one on the banks of the River Thames in London. The RMS Rhone is the one that was built on the River Thames. And the shipbuilder said, okay, we've got some new ideas. We're going to put a propeller at the back of the boat instead of having paddle wheels on the side. And we're not going to put a little mast on it, we're going to put a full set of sails on there so we can sail along as fast as we want. We've also got a propeller on the back, so if the winds are a bit light, we can turn the engine on, or if there's no wind at all, or it's blowing the wrong way, we can still make the way we want to go. They also said it's going to take us a little bit of time to build these ships. It's going to take us somewhere between 5 and 6 years. We've got lots of stuff to do. So, come June 1865, the Queen gets a telegram saying the ships are ready. Okay, come down for a party. This is kind of 6 months early, and they were under budget as well. So she was very pleased with that. So she cracks the bottle of champagne on the bow, slides down the slipway, and unsurprisingly, it floats. They do a good job. They can't immediately put it into service, so they have to put it through some sea trials first, just to make sure that everything's working. Because you know somebody's got put something together wrong, breaks, that kind of stuff. So they do some sea trials, everything works really well, and the sea trials, they go across the English Channel to France a few times to make sure that everything goes well. They use the English Channel because, first of all, it's quite rough conditions there, so quite testing conditions, but also it's quite close to land, so if you do have any problems, you can easily get back to shore relatively quickly. So it goes through these sea trials, survives quite a big storm that actually sunk a number of Royal Navy ships, and because it survived this massive storm, they foolishly deemed it to be unsinkable.
Right.
Yeah. Whoops. A lot like the Titanic. It's later be deemed unsinkable. So, sea trials are all done, and it's handed over to its captain at the time, who's a Scottish guy called Captain Woolley. Okay. And he immediately puts it into service, doing the most prestigious route the Royal Mail Steam Packet Company had, which was to leave Southampton on the south coast of England, go across to the Canary Islands, which are just off the coast of Africa. They then go across to the Azores, which are some little rocks right in the middle of the Atlantic, where they stop off and get some more coal. They then head across the rest of the Atlantic all the way over to the Caribbean, where they then go through the Caribbean all the way down to Brazil, turn around, come back up through the Caribbean, and eventually head over to Bermuda, and then eventually end up back in England. And they did this trip a number of times. One time they actually stopped, they missed out the Canary Islands and the Azores, and they all the way across the Atlantic in one go. And they beat the record crossing of the Atlantic by 19 days. They didn't have to stop off in so many places. They're nice and fast, nice and straight. So he's doing this route for a number of years. Fast forward a couple of years, and it's 1867. It's late October, he's just completed his 10th crossing of the Atlantic, and he's just coming back up through the Caribbean into the Virgin Islands. Back in the 1860s, the Virgin Islands, these bits here were owned by the British. Down there in the US Virgin Islands, it was actually mostly owned by the Dutch, Spanish. Okay. So, pulling into Charlotte Marlier. Have you guys been to St. Thomas yet? Are you going on this trip?
Yes.
Yeah. So, you guys are heading to St. Thomas tomorrow?
Yes.
Okay, so you're doing laps around out here overnight then. Okay, so Charlotte Marlier, you'll see tomorrow. It's a massive natural harbour. Great place to keep ships. There's lots of waterfront so that they can have lots of ships there. So he drops his anchor in the harbour there, and he sees yellow flags flying all over town. Your cruise ship was flying a yellow flag when it came into port this morning. If it's flying on a ship, it means that it hasn't cleared customs yet. It's effectively quarantined. You're not allowed off the ship. If it's flying over land, it means the same thing. So the town is quarantined. Okay? It means nobody's allowed out. Okay? If Captain Woolley had docked in Charlotte Marlier, it meant that he wouldn't have been able to leave until the diseases had run their course. Back then, they were having a big problem with yellow fever. Yellow fever doesn't die off very easily, so he decided, okay, I'm not stopping here, let's carry on going. Okay. He lifted up his anchor and steamed into the British Virgin Islands, and he actually pulled into Great Harbour. Great Harbour is on Peter Island, this island just behind me. It's on the northern side of it. You can actually see it on the way back. In Great Harbour there was a kind of refueling station and also a small dock where they could offload all the cargo that they brought across the Atlantic. So he drops his anchor there and notices that there's another ship in the harbour as well, another RMS ship, a ship by the name of the RMS Conway. The Conway was an older steam paddle wheel vessel that didn't go across the Atlantic anymore. It kind of just stayed around in this area. They'd load stuff on there and then it would deliver it to all the other little islands. So he begins transferring the goods and cargo over to the Conway, and the captain of the Conway, a guy by the name of Captain Hammock, decides, okay, I want to see what this new ship's like because I may get one of these in a couple of years' time.
Oh no.
So he comes across and jumps on and asks for a tour. Captain Woolley's course going to show him around. They show him around, eventually ending up in the captain's cabin where, of course, being English, they had some tea. And being the Caribbean and you can't really get good water, you've got to put some rum in there to kill all the bugs. So, tea and rum. And they're having a good party just there. Okay. Eventually, early afternoon, there's a knock on the door. It's the weatherman. Okay. The weatherman can see that there's a storm brewing on the horizon. He's been up to the top of these hills up here. You can see there's a big storm over to the south. He's got to tell the captains about it because otherwise he wouldn't be a very good weatherman. So he describes the storm. Captains aren't too worried. The storm's to the south, so that all the wind and the waves will be coming from the south as well. Great Harbour is very protected from the south. There's nothing to really, there's no way that the waves can really wash in there. But they know that if it is a very big storm, when the storm actually passes by, winds will come from the other direction. So they have to they've got that in the back of their mind just so that if there is a big storm. Okay. So a little bit later on, they find the weatherman up on top deck looking out at the storm, and he found his barometer, and he's looking at the barometer and you can see that the barometer is dropping very rapidly. The problem with barometer dropping very rapidly is one of the signs that could be a hurricane on the way. But this is late October. They're convinced that hurricane season finishes middle to end of August, and it only starts in June. We now know that hurricanes can form as early as middle of March, and the latest hurricane is the middle of December or so.
Wow.
So they don't think it's a hurricane, but they have to say, if it is a hurricane, the winds are definitely going to shift. So when the storm passes by, that's then going to make all the wind blowing out the north. That's going to spin the ships around and force them up onto the beaches of Great Harbour. So they come up with this plan of they're going to ride out the first part of the storm in Great Harbour. It's the best place to be. However, when the storm passes by, the winds will shift, and when the winds are shifting, the winds will actually die down quite a lot. Even if the eye of the storm, where it completely goes calm, doesn't pass over them, it will die down enough for them to actually move the ship around. So the winds die down, they immediately start to try and lift the anchor. Unfortunately, they can't lift the anchor. We now know, because we can actually dive with Rhone's anchor, it got dragged across the bottom in the first part of the storm, wrapped itself around a couple of coral heads, and then got us completely stuck. So they can't lift the anchor, so they have to chop it free. Unfortunately, the anchor chain was rather massive because they didn't really know what they were doing, so they built everything big. The anchor chain links are about this big from front to back,
Wow.
maybe about that big around. So they didn't have electric angle grinders back then. Imagine how long it would have taken to chop through it. So they eventually chop the anchor free and immediately get on their way. But this has taken a little bit too long. They found that the winds have started picking up again. The winds are blowing them up out the north. They're blowing them around. Okay. The problem is, they've now only got their backup anchor, which was a lot smaller. They don't think they can make it over into Road Town where your cruise ship is, drop their secondary anchor, and then still be safe. So they decide that they're going to do the next best thing, which is get away from all the land. They've come across the Atlantic a number of times. They know that they can handle relatively big waves. They don't really need to worry about the size of the waves too much. It's just being able to manoeuvre enough. So they come on out through this gap between Salt Island and Peter Island. They know that they have to stay closer to Salt Island, which is this island right here behind us, because there's a rock pinnacle right about where that sailing boat is, just over there, which they don't want to hit because it comes to within kind of 10 feet of the surface. So they're coming up through this gap here. Captain Willie's help doing a great job keeping them going straight through this gap, where unfortunately he hears a cry of land to port. You want to look at. He immediately doesn't really believe them because he should be in the middle of the channel. So he steps out onto the wing deck and sees these rocks on the outside. So unfortunately, the next thing that he sees is a massive pool of water down the side of the ship. That then hits the captain, knocks him off the ship. Captain Woolley was the first casualty of the Rhone. There was actually enough time for them to write Captain Woolley went overboard at this time in the log before that happened. Okay. So that's why you have first officers. Okay. That's why Dale and Laura are on board as well. They can both drive the boat, so if I go overboard, they can come rescue me. So, first officer gets a promotion in the middle of a hurricane. Okay. And he's keeping on trying to make his way out this way. They didn't really categorise hurricanes back then, but they could measure the wind speed. So wind speed was reported somewhere between 140 and 150 miles an hour,
Wow.
which is a high category 4, low category 5 hurricane. If you compare that to storms that we've had recently, that means that the waves were up to 40 or 50 feet high. Yes, so absolutely massive waves. They carry on trying to go out this way. Unfortunately, they're finding that they're not really making any progress. So they decide to throw out their second anchor. It immediately hits the bottom, drags across the bottom, catches on another coral head, and the chain actually rips out the top of the anchor. Okay. So now they've got no anchors. They're slowly being forced back into the rocks just off the bow of the boat. The ship then gets forced up against those rocks, where it makes a hole in the side of the ship. this hole didn't immediately cause the Rhone to sink. What it did was it let relatively cool water into the ship, which flooded the engine room. That cool water hit the side of the boilers, which then caused a massive explosion. The explosion was so loud that the guys in Road Town, who were having a really good hurricane party, heard the sounds of that explosion. It was that loud, over the sounds of Catherine Hurricane. So the Rhone sank very, very quickly after being blown into bits. Iron ships sink pretty fast when they've got a big hole in them.
Yeah, I think so.
So, reports from the survivors, which there were 22 of, said that the Rhone sank somewhere between 10 seconds and a minute, so from on the surface to on the bottom. So, unsurprisingly, there was no time to get all the passengers out of their cabins, launch the lifeboats, all that kind of stuff. So there's a few survivors who survived just by being blasted clear, holding onto bits of wreckage, luckily getting washed onto Salt Island here. A couple of them dropped all the way down to John, which is that island way down there in the distance. I don't quite know how they managed to wash them all the way down there. So this island here is called Salt Island. It's called Salt Island because they used to harvest the salt from two massive salt ponds in the middle. There was a family that lived on Salt Island that harvested that salt. This family obviously heard the sounds of the explosion, and they couldn't really do anything at the time because they were hiding in their houses from the storm. So when the storm dies down, they come over the hill, see the scenes of devastation. They see bodies and a few survivors washed up on the beach. There's 3 crewmen clinging to the aft mast, sticking out the water. They go rescue them. They round up all the goods and cargo which is floating around here as well. What they do is they then bury the bodies just in a temporary burial site just around the corner of this island here. Look after the survivors and eventually end up ferrying them back to Road Town. So the Queen eventually hears of this tragedy, and there's a number of other ships that sank as well. Very concerned about the loss of life on the road, but she also hears about the great deed that the guys that lived on Salt Island did. So she decides that she has to give them a reward because they didn't really need to come rescue everyone, come bury all the bodies, all that kind of stuff. So she decides to give them land. It's better than giving them money. So she decides, let's give them Salt Island. So now they're no longer just employees, they actually own the salt pond, so then they can make a fair price for the salt. This family very quickly became very rich until refrigeration kind of got invented. And then they decided that they needed to do other things. A few of them decided to stay on the island, carry on fishing, but most of them moved to Tortola. Up until about 1980 or so, the island was still in the hands of that family, and the Queen, of course, demanded a tax each year. The tax was £1 of salt to be delivered to her. That's not a very big tax. Yeah, £1 of salt. So that kind of tradition continued up until about 1980 or so. Then carried on with the British Virgin Islands passed back to the they carried on delivering £1 of salt. Cool.
Wow.
So that's how it
Good
sank.
story. How many people died?
They think it was around about 300 or so.
Oh my gosh.
They're not too sure because the first part of the storm, people were moving from one ship to the other ship, so then when they eventually left, they're not exactly sure how many were on board, but 22 survivors.
Wow.
Only one of them was a passenger.
Very good story. Thank you.
So, let's
Riveting.
just carry on doing the briefing. Who's doing the briefing? I'm doing the briefing.
You're doing so well.
Okay, looks like I'm
everything from you, tribe and all.
Looks like I'm doing the briefing.
Okay.
Okay.
The cake, so
Yeah, you did the cake. That was very even slices, very good. Okay, so we went on the bow section earlier. Okay, what we're doing now is Anyone?
Hey, you can be famous.
No, I'm just taking a picture.
You too, man. You too.
Be on YouTube.
Okay, so what we're going to do now is the stern section. Okay, we've moved the boat from over here to about over here. Okay, these mooring balls are in the wrong place. So, same thing as before. We're going to get kitted up in our groups when we're ready. Oh, one group. Yeah, one group. So everyone's following Sesma now. Okay. So, what we're going to do, first of all, is same thing as before. Descend down. We're going to descend down about here. Okay. First thing you'll see is this stern section off to your left-hand side. Don't be tempted. We're coming back to that. Okay. What we're going to do first of all is head over to this bit here, this midsection here. You saw this boiler section on the first side. This bit here was the deck kind of went with this boiler section. Okay. So a few things that you'll see here, you'll see some deck support sticking straight up out the bottom. They look like Roman columns. See, the deck supports run horizontally across the boat. The boat's laying on its side, so they're sticking straight up like this. If you've got a camera, take some photos of there. It's normally really pretty. There's normally big horseye jacks, yellowtail snappers hanging around there as well. This bit here was also where part of the engine room was, because there's a big wrench set there as well. Okay, you're using a wrench to work on your car. The biggest wrenches are probably about that big that you use. Okay, maybe about that long. The wrenches on the Rhone, some of them are about 4, maybe 4.5 feet long. They'd undo a head of a nut and bolt, maybe 3 inches across. They're absolutely massive. Okay, they're in a rack. They look a lot like a ladder. So if you see your dive guide giving you this sign here, pressing out the wrenches, have a look. You can see the ends of them just there. Okay. Next thing we'll do is probably pop straight over this bit here. Have a look underneath this ledge here. It's a great place to find maybe a sleeping mouse shark or a lobster or so. And then we'll head over to this southern midsection, this section over here. On this section here, there's the water pump. There's also another 2 sections of those deck supports, and there's some black and white tiles. These black and white tiles were reportedly from the disco of the Rhone. As you know, disco was big in the 60s, so that means it was a bit big in the 1860s as well. So there's some black and white tiles. We haven't found the mirror ball yet, so if you find that, make sure you point it out to us.
Not usually.
If you can't find it, it's probably going to be the galley. Okay. So there's black and white tiles. Make sure you take a photo of the black and white tiles. They're slowly being encrusted by coral. Okay. You'll be able to see how fast coral grows if you come back in a year's time, take another picture. You can see the difference just here. Okay, after swimming around this section here, we're swimming over to this section over here, this main stern section. And the first bit you'll see is the boiler. Okay, you saw one boiler down here, so this boiler here is a little bit more intact. You can see the split in the side from where it actually exploded. Okay. It looks big enough to swim through. Please don't. Okay. If you were silly enough to try and swim through it, you'd either get caught up in the pipes, hang down from the top, or you crash into the magnificent purple tube sponges that are just on the bottom. Okay. But feel free to have a look inside there, stick your head around and look inside. Next thing we'll do is swim around the back of the boiler and over to the gearbox. The gearbox, when your car is probably about that big. Gearbox on the Rhone, big as this table. Okay. It's absolutely massive. Still got the big cogs inside it. If you see, it's giving you this sign here. That's the gearbox. Boiler's a big explosion. Complete sound effects underwater as well. So after swimming around the gearbox, we swim along this propeller shaft. Okay. The propeller shaft on this boat is about that big around. The propeller shaft on the Rhone, probably about that big around. Okay. So we'll swim along that propeller shaft and then come on over this way here. Do you remember I said that there was one passenger that survived? He was an Italian guy called Luigi Giuseppe. Okay? He was staying in cabin number 26. Okay? Very surprisingly, there's a porthole here, the stamp number 26. We like to think that it was his cabin. It's the only porthole that actually survived the explosion. All the rest of them, the glass was shattered out. Okay? Somebody decided that the porthole shouldn't be on the Rhone anymore, it should be on the mantelpiece a few years ago. So there's a hole in the glass where they obviously try to jam a crowbar inside it, but it's still nice and shiny where everyone gives it 3 rubs, makes a wish for one of these, or maybe one of these, or maybe one of these. Don't wish for money, that never works. Okay. What I will say is everyone who has rubbed the lucky porthole has successfully got back on this boat.
There you go. That's a good thing.
Okay, so after swimming around the lucky porthole, the next thing you'll see is the propeller. Okay, the propeller on this ship is absolutely massive. Any guesses to how big?
20 feet high.
Okay, it's 18 feet in diameter.
Oh my god.
Too far.
Yeah, you weren't too far. 18 feet in diameter. The propellers on your cruise ship are about 15 feet in diameter. But your cruise ship's got 4 of them.
4.
Yeah, it's got 4 of them.
That's the catch.
So, 18 feet in diameter, made out of solid bronze. It was the biggest bronze propeller that had ever been made at the time. Okay, made out of solid bronze. Okay, the way that it's laying against the reef, it makes a really cool little swim through, swimming in here and popping out over here. Okay, it's a little bit tighter than the swim through that you did on the first dive, but it's just as cool. When you do swim through, make sure you have a look down and to the right, and sometimes there's a sleeping shark down there. And make sure you have a look up and to the left. It's really pretty looking up through the ship up that way. After swimming around here, depending on how much air everyone's got left, will depend on what we do next. If everyone's got lots, we'll head up here and off the edge of the map, around this point into a cool little canyon system where all the rocks kind of are at this point. This canyon system is very shallow. It's only about 20, maybe 25 feet. So make sure you let lots of air out your BCD before we get into that system there. We swim around there, and then we'll eventually swim back over the wreck. Okay? If everyone's running a little bit low, we'll just stay over the wreck. And we'll just kind of spend the last little bit of time just going over the wreck here. You remember from the story I said that the aftermast was sticking up out of the water? It's actually lying down now. In about the 1960s or so, the Royal Navy decided that it was a navigation hazard, and also they didn't want lots of boats tying up to it, let alone the island which is right there. So we decided to chop it down and lay it down by the side. But it's still got all the same things on it as this one, so it's got the crow's nest on there and all that kind of stuff. Okay? Cool. How long have we been out?
It's time.
It's time?